Hello everyone, it's Kirk Mastin here from Mastin Labs. We are just about to start our live edit for today. I'll be editing photos from the community and taking questions, any questions you have about how Mastin Labs works or the editing process. Normally we do these inside of the Mastin Labs Facebook community, which you can join on Facebook. Just type in Mastin Labs community. And we do these quite often in there, but today I'm going to be doing one on the business page, or our main Mastin Labs page. And yeah, it's going to be great. If you happen to miss this recording, we will have it up again where you can watch it its full length in high def. So don't worry if you come in late or anything like that. You should be totally fine. I'm going to give it a second here just to make sure everything is online and the stream is going well. Looks like the stream is working. Let me just make sure that I've got my little, hey Topher, how's it going? Okay, everything is working, great. I'm gonna give it about 2 minutes here, or maybe a minute before I start. I just wanna make sure we get more people in the room, and I can't wait to answer your questions. Anyway, I am in Seattle, Washington right now. It is a nice day out, and where are you watching from? So leave it in the comments, and I'll try to say hi while we wait for people to come in. All right, so Zoe's here. Zoe, you are from Scotland, I think, or the UK somewhere. Topher is down in California. Josephine Beadle, hey, you're in Seattle. Awesome. Fellow Seattleite, that's awesome. Anyone else? Christina Krut is from New York. Cool. Adrian Justin Durachinsky is from Omaha, Nebraska. David Shockey is from Cleveland, Ohio. Matthew Brown from DC. Shot a wedding there once. It was actually a really beautiful place. I had no idea. Washington, DC seemed kind of scary to me, but when I got down there, it was amazing. I loved it. Daniel Smith just says hello, hello. And who else? Anyone else? All right, we're about to start. Mastin Labs is waving back at me. That's cool. Lucas from Poland is here. What's up? Nikki Cruz from Gulf Breeze, Florida. That sounds nice. Katie Munch. You got a cool way of spelling Katie. I've never seen that in my entire life. Fargo, North Dakota. And Zoe, yes, I guessed it. You're from Scotland. I shot a wedding in Scotland once, right on the banks of Loch Ness, or right near there at a castle. It was amazing. And we've got Frugina Berkes from Norway. So thank you for joining us from Norway. Hey Lucas, what's up? All right, I've waited long enough. Let's get started. All of these photos here are from, oh, we got someone from Kosovo. Cool. Afrim Demoli from Kosovo. All right. So these images are from our community. We have a Dropbox, an ongoing Dropbox where people can send us images to edit, and we do live edits in the community, usually just a few images, and then sometimes we do longer live edits whenever we have a sale or like a new announcement. So this is going to be one of the longer ones. Hopefully everyone has sent in their file with the file name, including their name, like the person who shot it, and what they want to see done to it. So this one says, this image says Dana Nakagawa, and it just says any Fuji pushed. So just use any Fuji push preset. So that helps me know what to use on it. All right. So let's get started. I also have our pack that isn't out yet, the Everyday pack, the Kodak Everyday pack. So that's also in here. If you're one of the lucky few people to request something from that pack, either Ektar or Gold 200 or Tri-X, I will do that as well. Let's see. Is anyone having trouble with audio? Anyone having trouble with audio? Someone just mentioned they did. Nikki, can you check that for me? Okay, sounds like audio is working. So it's somewhere where you are, Daniel Smith. So Glenn says, not sure why. I can't hear it except in the thumbnail. I think everything seems fine on our end, so we're just going to go for it. Okay, Matthew Brown says he can hear. Mohammed Najib says nope. Oh my God, Facebook Live.
Tell them to restart Facebook.
Yeah, restart. Nikki says restart Facebook. I don't know. It seems to be working for most people. You'll hear it in the replay. I'm sure of it. We can hear it in the office, right?
Yeah.
It's fine? Okay. Man, you guys are freaking me out. Okay, so let's get started. So any Fuji pushed. This is a DNG file, so I need to go check real quick to make sure what kind of camera it is. So it's a Nikon. Oh, Zoe said refresh your feed if it was glitchy. So just do that if you're having any trouble. All right, now we're starting for real. No more interruptions. This is the real deal. So any Fuji push. So this is a Nikon file. So just go to Fuji Color Nikon. And then we've got Fuji 400H plus 1, Fuji 400H plus 2, 160NS plus 1, 160NS plus 2. I'm going to start with Fuji 400H plus 1. That's like probably the most classic Fuji film, or the original Fuji pack, Fuji 400H. That's the one that is like got everybody all hot and steamy. That's the exciting one this year. But the Fuji push version is like a little more colorful, a little more punchy than the original one. So this is just one-click Fuji 400H. Two things that you can do right off the bat after applying a preset is, check the exposure and the white balance. If they're not right, then they're just not going to be right, even after you apply the preset. Those are things that you have to change. In this photo, they both actually look pretty perfect, so I don't need to change them. This image also doesn't have too much vignetting or distortion, but I can check just by hitting lens correction on. And it didn't hardly change, so it's already pretty correct. One thing people like to do is do all soft. So on the side, we've got underneath, so the way it goes is we've got white balances at the top. So if you're having trouble seeing skin tone or knowing how to adjust your image to get a film look, we have white balance settings that are tuned to that pack on the side. So if you want, you can hover over those and try one of those settings. So like daylight, you see how it warmed up just a little bit? I think actually that does look a little better. That gives you a better kind of starting point for skin tones. You can also riff off of that. You can start with a white balance setting and then go over to the side here and just change the temperature again if you want. So I'm actually going in between what it was shot at and daylight. Another thing you can do is go to the tone profile section at the bottom underneath film. And those are settings that you would find on the Fuji Frontier scanner to work with different lighting situations. So in this image, we've got dappled light, meaning that there's little spots of light coming through the trees. And those are pretty harsh. What you can do is just use all soft. And you saw as I applied that, it kind of softened out the highlights. That recovers highlight detail and shadow detail, the same way that you would have in film. So the same settings that are on my Fuji Frontier scanner, all hard, all soft, highlight hard, highlight soft, we've translated those into Lightroom to give you the same effect. So it's a nice way of kind of like bringing the edge off of highlights and shadows without it looking like HDR or fake. So I'll just show you before and after and show you some of the steps here. Okay, so on the left we've got the raw image, and on the right all I did was apply Fuji 400H plus 1. I did a small temperature adjustment, and then I used all soft, and that's it. So 3 clicks from the left image to the right image. Okay, so yes, that's Fuji Push. I'll show you the difference between Fuji Push. So this is the push pack. So when you push film, you're actually increasing the contrast and often the saturation of it. Pushing film, it comes from like actual real film. So you're shooting, say, a 200 speed film. You're shooting it as though it were a 400 speed film, and then you would tell the lab to push it one stop in development. That means develop it a little bit extra to make up for the lack of ISO. Now this might be just going like right over your head. It's totally fine. If you get into shooting real film, which I hope you do, it's something really worth exploring. It's really cool. You can bring out really neat looks in your film. We've taken those looks and put them into different preset packs in addition to preset packs where it's not pushed. So I'll show you the difference between, this is Fuji 400H push one stop. If we go to the original Fuji pack, which is right here, I'll show you what the original Fuji 400H looks like if you don't push it. So that is Fuji 400H not pushed. And after looking at the pushed one for a long time, your eyes really just kind of calibrate to this like really high contrast and saturation level, and going back to the original packs looks kind of weird. But it is this original pack that is still our biggest seller of all, just because that really pastel look is super hot still. On the original pack, I would actually go a little bit warmer and a little bit more magenta with this film stock. So I would go just a tiny bit warmer, not much, just like barely. Yeah, like maybe that much, and just a tiny bit more magenta, and maybe increase exposure just a little bit. So you can see that's a completely different look than the original one, than the Fuji pushed one. I'll go back to Fuji pushed real quick so you can see the difference. So, all right, that's Fuji pushed one stop, 400H push one stop, and that's box speed. So kind of useful to know the difference. You know, if you want to go for that really, really very light and pastel look, you would want to go with the original pack. If you want something a little more colorful, something that pops a little more, then I would say the Fuji push pack. Lynette says, you just sold me on the push. It was the last one I needed to complete my Martin collection. I don't know who Martin is, but I'm sure he's happy you completed his collection. No, but thank you. No, yes, thank you so much for purchasing that. Is anyone else having trouble hearing? This is the first time we've ever had it where like half the people can hear me and half the people can't. If you cannot hear me, just refresh the page and it seems to fix it. So while Martina Zandinella is refreshing her page so that she can hear me, just wanted to mention that we're having one of only 2 sales that we have for the entire year. It's happening right now. It ends tomorrow, and you can save 25%. And I'm just mentioning this because we will not have another sale for 6 months. We don't do them ever, just twice a year. So I just want to put that out there. If you don't want to miss out, if you wanted to change up how you edit this year, now's the time to do it. You got the whole season ahead of you. It's well worth the investment. So Dana Nakagawa, thank you so much. I will move on to, I don't know, something completely different. For those watching, if there's anything you want to see in particular, just like call it out and I'll do it. So some kind of lighting situation, anything. I thought this one looked really cool. So we're around the royal wedding time, and this image, I don't know, maybe it's like the suits they're wearing or the red hair, but it made me think of the royal wedding. So I just wanted to edit this one really quick. Okay, I'm going to answer 2 questions real quick. What black and white plugin do you have? Asked John Coop. I've got the Ilford pack. We have that, which has got 3 really very different black and white films from Ilford. And the Tri-X 400 is coming out in a new pack in about a month. Kevin asks, what would you say is the best pack in your opinion for indoor difficult lighting? Well, obviously black and white, but that's like been that way through all of photographic history. That's like why half the time you use black and white film. Always looks good. No actual color film in the world really looks good in difficult indoor lighting. Maybe Cinestill film, even that's kind of tricky, but certainly not any Kodak or Fuji color films. But having said that, I would say that the Fuji original and the Portra pushed, in my opinion, look really nice for tricky lighting inside. Let's see here. Any other questions? Lens correction is manual. Oh, you're shooting the Ultron. Okay, all right. So I used to have that lens. All right, so back to this photo. Yao de Madero asked for portrait pushed, and this is a, let's see, ARW is Sony. Yeah, it's a Sony file. Cool. All right. Let me just load that up real quick. Portrait pushed, Sony. All right. So let's just do, I don't know, let's just do Portrait 160 to start off with. This new Lightroom, man, is crazy. Like, you just hover over the preset and you get a preview, which I think is totally cool, but it's also kind of lags. So sometimes I apply something and I'm not sure like if it really like has reacted yet or not. But anyway, so Portrait 160 +1. If you just apply the preset and you leave it, you're just gonna go, man, these presets suck. Like, this looks terrible. That's because unless the raw image was shot perfectly, or not perfectly, but just like the right exposure for editing, it's gonna look underexposed. And contrasty and weird. So let me back up one step here. So this image doesn't look underexposed, but that's because it's a raw image. And a raw image is usually very gray and very muted and very flat, and that's on purpose. That's so that you have the most flexibility to edit it later. So it's really hard for your eyes to see that it's underexposed. But the lower half of this image is certainly underexposed. So when I apply Portrait 160, it looks like kind of a hot mess down below. However, all you need to do is just increase the exposure to kind of bring up the midtones. And secondly, and this is a tricky image because the background and the foreground are in completely different kinds of light. If you go back to the original, you'll see that it's like, you know, daytime or late evening in the background, way in the back, and then in the foreground, it's vignetting and they're in a much more shaded area. So I'll walk you through how I would approach this image. So I apply Portrait 160 +1. I would then do All Soft. And what All Soft is going to do is bring in detail in the sky and detail in the shadows. The next thing I would do is do profile corrections. Now, so Yao said that he was using a manual Voigtlander Ultron lens. I used to have one of those. They don't have a lens correction profile in Lightroom. So I'll show you something here. So if it doesn't have its own profile, you can look for one in here manually. And he said it was a 3517 Ultron. There we go. Let's see if that did anything. All right. I had to go dig for that. So the lens isn't actually telling Lightroom what kind of lens it is, so you have to like just know and then go get it yourself in the lens profile. But I'll show you the difference between before and after fixing it. So this is before, and this is after. So lens correction is super important. I'm going to bring the exposure down just a skosh. And the very last thing I'm going to do, since even with using All Soft, we can't kind of align the exposure on the bottom part of the photo and the top part. Just an old trick that I learned in the Navy that you can do is you just go grab a neutral density graduated filter. It's this little rectangle. Have it be at like -5 exposure, 0.5 exposure, and then you just pull this down over the part that needs to be darker, like the sky. And then you can adjust exposure to taste, or however you like to use a neutral density filter. So the neutral density filters come from real things. There are actually pieces of glass that you put on a slider in front of your lens, and they start out really, really dark on top, and then they transition to clear. And so if you were shooting, you would put it in this holder on the front of your lens, and you would look through and move it up and down to get the sky to darken to the exact right amount without like kind of cutting into people's heads. And you do the same thing in Lightroom. That's what that tool is for. Except the one in Lightroom is way more versatile than a real neutral density filter. Graduated neutral density filter. All right, so I'll show you the before and after. This was kind of a tricky image. So on the left is totally unedited, and on the right is with Portrait 160 push one stop. I'll show you Portrait 400 by comparison. There's Portrait 400. We also need to do the all soft there to make them truly equal. Slightly different skin tones, a little bit more yellow, maybe a slight bit green, a little bit more yellow-green in the skin. That's Portrait in general compared to Fujifilms. Portrait 160, out of all the Portrait films, is the least green, kind of at its base. I find the Portrait films, all of them, to be really good with Caucasian skin. It warms them up, makes them look healthy, so it's really kind of ideal for an image like this. So anyway, I'm going way beyond my time on this image, so I'm going to move on. Thank you, Yao, for sending this to us. Do you have any more questions? Hey, Alberto from Italy. Ciao. Nice to meet you. And Dean Hislop says, I used to love shooting Fuji Velvia 50. Me too. I'm working on that actually in a whole different pack. Okay, any other questions? No. My pleasure, Yao. It was fun to edit your image. All right, let's move on to something totally different. Should I do an easy image or a very difficult image to edit? What would you like to see? You guys vote. In the meantime, I'm just going to kind of go a little quicker through some of these. And let me know in the comments what you want me to do. Oh, yeah. All right, you get a second turn here. We'll go a little faster on this because we don't have so many issues with contrast. Well, we do a little bit with some of the bridesmaids on the right, but so any of the Portrait, eh? Let's start with Portrait 400. That's just one click to there, and then let's do daylight white balance and increase the exposure just a little bit. Now on this image, we kind of have the opposite problem of the last one. The parts that are way too bright are up on the corners. So what you can do, and this has nothing to do with our presets really, but it's just a handy trick, is that you can add your own vignetting with the vignette tool. And it's these little tweaks that I think really make a difference in a photo. Oh, so there's several approaches. I could just burn it down in the corners. That's fine. But it's kind of a very circular image, like everything's looking at them anyway. So you can just kind of take the post-crop vignetting tool, pull it down a bit, pull the midpoint down, and start to tame those corners. You don't want it to look fake though, so you got to kind of work with the midpoint. That looks pretty cool. Another option you could do is take these handy dandy neutral density filters, and instead of pulling it straight down, you could pull one in from the side. Come on. I think they look really good used this way too. So I'm just kind of pulling two down like that. They're nice and even. I don't necessarily want to darken up the lower left and right corners, so you can just kind of do it by choice with the neutral density filter. And then the last thing I would do to this image is go into the upright panel under transform. This to me is like the coolest part of Lightroom, is that you can fix distortion and any kind of vertical or horizontal tilt in your image. So you might not notice it at first, but it really stands out to me, is that the doorway in the back is tilted and a little kind of skewed weirdly. So you just hit like vertical, and that fixes it. It scans the image, finds the doorway, it gets that thing to be straight, and I think it's a much better image, more powerful when it's fixed. All right, so I think the last thing I'm gonna do is maybe brighten it up just a tiny bit. And I'm just gonna edit it, you know, I edited this as though it were my wedding, what I would have delivered. So I brightened it up a little bit and maybe a little bit more warmth. So I'll show you the before and after. So before on the left and after on the right. Okay, let's see what we got here. Difficult indoor lighting. Okay. Julian says, very difficult, please. Nikki Cruz says, difficult. Okay. Christina Crute says, are there any images that are indoors? A reception shot with sparklers, something hard. Do I always do the sharpening of 40? Yes, I never touch the sharpening. I only sharpen when I go to export the image, and only a little bit. Josephine says she likes the fast edits. Okay, I'll do fast edits in really crappy lighting inside and look for a sparkler image. How does that sound? Okay, and I'm going to look for Amber's image if I can find it. Amber, if you can describe what your image looks like, I'll find it way faster, and I'll try to do it. All right, so I'm going to go fast. I'm going to go for the quick and dirty, bad indoor lighting. And you can laugh along with me because not every photo in the world can be made to look perfect no matter what. It's just not possible, but you can see how I will do my best with each one. The light that you actually shoot in is the most important thing in the world. And you have a lot of control over that. You have control over the timeline. You have control over where people are in the frame. You can move people around. You have control over turning lights on or off if you have mixed lighting. And you have control over bringing your own lights. So those things are all in your control. But say you know, I don't know, whatever. You just got to work with it. You work with it. So this image reminds me of a lot of stuff that I had to shoot when I was shooting more in California at night. You've got, I mean, what ISO is this? It says 12,800 ISO. I remember shooting in places like this. This reference view, man. Let me get out of here. So in this kind of situation, you know, you've got all tungsten light, which is good. Oh, no way. This is also Yao's image. I swear we're not colluding. This is totally random. All right. I'll do this one. I'll do this one anyway because I was like, this reminds me of a lot of stuff I've had to shoot inside. All right. So portrait push. Let's do it. So, I don't know. Let's do portrait 160. Let's see. What's going to give us a nice base here? Yeah, I say portrait 160. It's shot at an insanely high ISO. I mean, not insanely high, but pretty high. So it's going to be grainy, and you're not going to have as much color fidelity, like the higher the ISO is. But we'll do what we can. So that's portrait 160. I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit. Drop the temperature just a tiny bit. There's almost no color information in the image period because it's shot at such a high ISO. That's a little trick I learned too, is that the higher the ISO that you shoot in, especially in bad lighting, the less information you can get back from the raw image to get really accurate color with a lot of variation in it. Kind of makes everything kind of get muddy together. I'll find another image that's shot inside with a lower ISO and show you how much more you can correct it than this image, because this is shot at 12,800 ISO. But that's with portrait 160. One thing I found shooting inside in bad light like this, and it's kind of counterintuitive, is that you want to do any of these presets plus all hard. Why? Because like I said, the image gets muddy the higher the ISO and the worse the lighting. So what all hard does is you can barely see it, but it adds just a little bit of pop to the image, brings a little bit more definition out in the highlights and the shadows. I don't know, I'm going to play with this a little bit more. This is a tough one. You wanted the tough one, so this is a tough one. Right now I'm just futzing a little bit with tint. So that's about as good as I can get this one. See the before and after. So yeah, it's better, but that's some tricky stuff. All right, Yao. Sorry, I can't do just your images. I like your images though. Okay, so Amber found her photo. Photo of the couple with the bride wearing blue sparkly dress in the archway of broken bricks, sun in the back. All right, oh yeah, all right. Oh man, All right, guys. You wanted tough? We have tough. This will be fun. Okay, so it's an ARW image. Sony shot at ISO 200. All right, so already we are in a better spot. ISO 200, that's good. Okay, so this says Amber Miller, let Kirk choose. Why, thank you. Okay. Well, let me see here. Let's do Fuji pushed. Do 400H. It's gonna look like a hot train wreck until we get it kind of dialed in here. So I apply Fuji 400H plus 1. Let's see what we can do. Increase the exposure. The temperature is way too low, so open shade, that's not even enough. Oh, that's too much. How about cloudy? Come on. How about daylight? Daylight looks pretty good. This is crazy. It's holding up though. All right, and so there was a lot of sky detail. I'm going to drop the exposure real quick. This is something you can do to check to see what part of the image is even salvageable. So if you just drop it really low, you can check to see where there's still information in the sensor. So there's still information in the sky. I wasn't sure. I just had to go look. So what I'm going to do is do highlight soft. And that was perfect. Okay, so it brought back just kind of that pinky goodness in the sky back here. You can now see the sun, a little bit of detail in the clouds. And I'm going to increase the exposure just a little bit more. This is going to be one of those where, like, if it was in the group, they'd be like, Mastin Labs saves the day. And then there would be 100 people going, no, raw file saves the day. It's a combination. It's mostly raw file. So let's take a look at their skin tones real quick. This brick is kind of tripping me out. It's making everything look kind of like orange-red. So I'm going to just focus on their face. And it looks a little bit magenta. So I'll just drop tint a tiny bit. Right about there, I guess. I don't even know if you can see it if you're watching. It's so minute. We're about there. Okay. And open exposure just a little bit more. All right. So, Amber, I don't know if this is what you were hoping to do with the photo or not. This is what I did. This is obviously kind of a light and airy look. But it's a pretty rad photo. Really held up. Show the before and after. So before on the left and after on the right. This would be a good candidate for the graduated neutral density filter. So, I mean, just to kind of play around with. So I'm just going to do it again and kind of bring it in on the side right there. And yeah, that's how I deliver this. This looks really cool. I really like it. So, show you before and after one more time. This is before. Oh my God. So dark. And that's after. So, really pretty photo. Really like it. All right. Okay, any other ones? Josephine asks, what photo editing tablet do you recommend? Is Wacom worth looking into? Yeah, Wacom makes great stuff. I don't use a photo editing tablet. I actually do I try not to mess with photos too much. I feel like it's really, really easy to make them look super fake. So I used to do a lot of skin smoothing and like selective sharpening and going into Photoshop and liquefying and retouching. I think that there's a real fine line. If you do that too much, it starts to kind of make it not look very real. I find that the film look is like ice cream. It's very easy to melt ice cream. It's very, very hard to put it back together again, to make it back into ice cream. So when you're working with a raw file, you just want to be very gentle. And a lot of our presets are based around that, like very subtle and smooth, and just it's about subtlety, subtle tones. I'll show you. This is good because it's like, it's very, the tones are very even. So this image, I think with the lightest touch, is going to look like film. And then if I was to do too much in Photoshop, like take it into Photoshop and like do selective sharpening and skin smoothing and liquefying and all this stuff, then it'll start to look super digital again. So that's my advice with the tablets and stuff. A little bit of work with a tablet is good. Like blemishes and things, that's good. Okay. So this is from Fruzina Berkes. I think you're from Norway, because I said hi earlier. And this is for Portra Original. So let's go to that Portra Original. And this is a Sony file. So here is Portra 400. There we go. So that's one click. And like I said in my ice cream analogy, you don't want to do too much, because if you start overworking an image, it starts to look fake. Looks like digital. So nothing beats film, like actual real film. Nothing, not even what we make. It's like there's film, there's Mastin Labs, and then there's like everybody else. So film is going to be always the smoothest, bestest thing in the world. We take kind of the same philosophy of like subtlety, not overdoing it. So that's just with like one click, going from this, which already is a really nice image, to this, which is just giving it the more three-dimensionality of film and shifting the greens and skin tones to the palette that Portra 400 has, which is my favorite film of all time. So I could mess with this more. I'll do a little bit, but it's already really nice. And like I said, less is more. So let's do all soft. So I just did all soft. I'll show you the difference between normal and all soft. So this is with all soft. And that is just the normal preset. The main difference you're going to see is in the highlights of her skin. So I'll do all soft again and just watch. So what I did is it all soft basically is bringing out a little bit of detail in the shadows, and it's also extending the range of the highlights just a little bit to kind of bring the total contrast of the picture a little bit closer together. So yeah, looks super nice. I would say the only thing I would do maybe would be go into Photoshop and Photoshop this. It looks like maybe she was wearing like a belly band or something right before the photo, and it left like a little mark on her skin. I'd probably just get rid of that and then call it good. But a really nice photo. Okay, so we have several people asking about green and neon green. Let's find a photo with neon green in it. And we'll talk about green. Green's a big thing. 2018 is the year of green. Lightroom, come on. There we go. All right, let's talk about green. Let's talk about Lightroom being faster. This is a good example. So this is from Barbara Likavska. So green is like a huge thing right now. There are some presets out there that take away all the green, so there is no green in the world. The world becomes a very brown place without any green. And that's cool. It's a look. There are also presets like we make, which take green more in the direction of film. So in general, all film types, all of them, will make greens appear cooler than they would otherwise appear with a digital camera. So digital cameras, by default, make green look very yellow, like this, and like this, and let me see, and like this. You don't think it's yellow, but then if you were to shoot this on film, you go, man, the green is like not yellow at all. It's actually very cool. And depending on which preset pack you use, the coolness varies. So any Fuji film has the greenest, like most minty green there is. Portra preserves a little bit of that yellow, and there's a little difference between the two. So I was going to do the other photo. Well, okay, I'll go back. It's not fair. All right. This is a good photo because it shows you another thing I want to point out. I haven't edited it yet, but look at how the green reacts across the frame. If you go over here, this is the green that people want. Or people that love film, they want this green. It's like that sage green, like kind of like cool green. This is the green that no one wants. This is the neon green that terrorizes people and gives them nightmares. The only difference in this photo from the left side to the right side is the amount of light and the direction of light hitting the green. So the number one way to not have neon green, whether you shoot film or digital, is to know how is the light hitting the green. If you are like on a golf course, this is very typical, on a golf course and the sun is behind the couple and it's like really still pretty harsh, even a little bit low in the sky, but lighting up the back of the green beneath them, it's going to be like the most neon annoying green in the world, and it's going to be the same crappy green on real film. It's going to just be green, neon green, till you can't stand it anymore. It's not going to look like Jose Villa, like sage green, 30 minutes after sunset in Southern California. It's not going to look that way because of the light. So I'm going to edit this with Fuji and show you something we made to kind of help with this a little bit. This is the Canon file, so here's Fuji. Come on. Man. There's not much contrast in this photo because you can see there's flare, so it's killing all the contrast in the lens. But we'll do the best we can. So there's Fuji 400H. It's way too cool. Let's warm it up a little bit. Drop the exposure. Of course, I had to pick like the toughest image in the entire universe. This image actually needs what we call the J trick, which we don't really need to do that much anymore. This is an extreme case because there's so much flare. So you just go down into the tone curve and pull these things back until you hit the black part of the histogram. It's kind of a trick. Oh, come on. It was way easier in the past because the way the old ones were so simple. Increase the contrast a little bit. And I'm also going to do all hard. All right, there we go. So it's kind of, this is a very pastel-y, super muted film to begin with, Fuji 400H. Like if you look at the before and the after, you can see the greens have changed quite a bit. If I was to go, I'm going to switch to an image that doesn't have so much lens flare so you can really see this. Okay, this has no lens flare. So view the greens right now. They go from very like, I don't know, very cool to very yellow. And with Fuji 400H, oh wait, this is an Nikon file. Oh, come on. All right, so with Fuji 400H, you can see everything's turned very green, or very blue, minty green, totally normal. That is just how green reacts on film and in our presets that are based on film. If you don't want the green to be, and I'm increasing the temperature just a little bit for their skin, if you don't want the green to be this bright, we do have another option called Fuji 400H Blue, And that's not actually a real film. It's the only time we've made something that's not a real film because we had so many requests for something that tamed green to make it less neon, especially in the era of like a lot of people using looks that don't have any green in them at all, like all the green sucked out. This is kind of a compromise. So Fuji 400H blue, it just kind of like turns down the volume on green just a little bit, if that's what you like. So I hope that answers your question. That was like the super longest way ever to explain something in my life. That's how you combat neon greens. Okay, so this is a great photo too. This is by Ahmet Gumu Suaglu. Ooh, that's a hard name. Cool photo though. They look like a sweet couple. So that's Fuji 400H. I'm just gonna do the straight up normal one. Like, you can see that there's a lot of definition missing around here. Like her dress kind of blends like right into the walkway. One thing you can do is just do all soft. Come on, computer. There we go. And you have a little bit more definition in that area. It's just gonna really expand the detail and dynamic range of the highlights without like really messing with the rest of the photo. So this is before, and that's after. Okay, cool photo. All right, next, let's do something totally different. Totally different. Let's see what other requests we have. All right. Well, while I wait for questions, I'll just do a few more. Let's see. What do I want to do? Something challenging. Oh, this is cool. Okay. We're gonna work with other skin tones than just white skin all the time. This is good. So this is from Amber Reed. This is a Canon file, and I'll show you kind of the difference of what Fuji films in general and portrait films look like on darker skin, because every skin type has got a different undertone. If you were to go get makeup or something like at the mall, one of the things they look for is what are the undertones in your own skin. Like what colors do you have in your skin tones? Like what mixes of colors? Because that's the base that the makeup goes on, and they interact. They react to each other, and either they make that skin look better or they make it look weird. And film is the exact same way. Kodak films in general were made for people with skin like hers. Kodak films were made in the United States. Most of their test subjects were Caucasian. And in general, the way the film works is that it makes Caucasian skin look really healthy. It has a lot of like yellow in it. On the other hand, if you have Asian skin or any kind of darker skin at all, sometimes portrait can react in a way to make it look really orange. Whereas Fuji, on the other hand, was made in Japan, and the people there have a totally different undertone to their skin, which actually resulted in Fuji films looking and working better in our experience with darker skin. So I'll show you the difference. No more talking. All right, here's Fuji 400H. Let's do the push packs. They're more fun for me. Okay, so this is Canon. All right, I'll show you the difference here. So here's Fuji 400H. Come on, Lightroom. That's one click. Looks really nice, like perfect, actually. So I'm gonna pat myself on the back. Actually, Amber, you should pat yourself on the back because you nailed the exposure and everything just perfect. So I don't even have to do anything, which is awesome. So this is before and after with just Fuji 400H, push one stop. Now, I'm gonna show you the difference between that and portrait. So portrait pushed. All right, so here's 400H, I don't know, push 2 stops. Whoops, there you go. Now, did you see how his skin turned like almost like green yellow? That's because this film is not quite as good for his skin type as any of the Fuji films are. So this can sometimes be a deciding factor for people. You know, I can adjust it a little bit. I can go into tint and increase the tint just a little bit, and it looks, I think it looks pretty good, not bad. Like, this is still a very nice image, but with far less fiddling, the Fuji films just naturally look really good on his skin tone. So this is with Fuji, and that's with Portra 400 push 2 stops. They both look good. They both, I mean, both look like they could be in a magazine, but that's kind of the difference. All right, any more questions here? Okay. All right, so Chelsea asked, do you have any images with black or brown people? I'd love to see that edit with maybe Fuji 400 or bright and airy is the style. Okay, maybe you asked that while I was doing this, so I'll try to make him bright and airy. I'm always wanting more example pictures of people that are not white. So please, like, send them into the Dropbox. I ask every time. It's getting a little bit better, but I want to see a lot more because it's more fun for me. It's more informative for people watching. And it's something that's really important to us is testing all of our presets in a way where we're using all different kinds of skin tone and models so that the presets react the same way that film would to those skin types. It's really important. No one should be left out. No one, I mean, like, tools should be for everybody. There are a lot of great artists out there. So please send in more pictures of people of color. Would be awesome. I have like a small collection I'm building from these events, but more would be great. So let's try to do a light and airy look. So that would be, let's go like the most light and airy. That would be Fuji 400H from the original. All right, and then we'll do all soft. It's kind of the hotness right now. Increase the exposure. And maybe drop, crazy enough, maybe drop the tint a little bit towards green. I don't normally do this with anyone that has black skin, but just a little bit. And that looks really nice. That's like perfectly nice, like pastel, beautiful, kind of light and airy look. So let's see, before and after. I have one other image, not in this collection, but another one I can show you really quick, just so you can learn more. I'll find it for you. All right, it's down here at the bottom, I think. Yeah, you've probably already seen this image because it's on our website. But I love it. It's really cool. So I'll do one more, like showing you the effects of Fuji versus Portra on her skin. So this is Fuji 400H. Oops, let's go. There we go. Nice and neutral. Skin looks really good. I'll show you before and after. Before is on the left, after is on the right. There's no big crazy thing happening here. There's no huge cuckoo shift of colors. We don't do that. This is about subtlety. But you can see how the greens have shifted and the tones, like on her face, it's much richer, you know, with Fuji 400H. And, you know, obviously you can see how the flowers have changed. Your skin looks really good. Now I'm going to go to Portra 400 from the original pack. Where is it? Portra original. And now you can see, let me get out of this view. And I'll swap back and forth so you can see the difference. So this is Portra, and that's Fuji. and that's Portrait, and that's Fuji. So you can see kind of the richness of her skin and the overall like undertone. Really, I think looks way better with the Fuji films in general. Neither are bad. I mean, she still looks really good with Portrait. You can see it starts to get a little bit yellow-orange. And with any of the Fuji films, you don't have that at all. All right, let me move on here. Christina says, what do you do in situations where there is a variation of skin tones in one picture? I would say go with the Fuji film, like actual in real life film, like Fuji films, or with the Fuji presets. Because if anything, the Fuji presets are just going to make really white people just look like they have perfect skin, but maybe not much of a tan. But it'll at least make everybody else, like everyone, look good. Whereas with, in general, a lot of the portrait films, if it was like a mix of skin tones, it wouldn't really favor some of the people in the photo as much. It would have more of an adverse effect. I don't know. It really depends, but that's my advice. Okay. All right, Nathan, you caught me just in time. You say, can you show me the difference between Fuji push and portrait push on my image? It's the bridle, the fourth from the beginning. Let's find it here. I got to wrap it up here soon. I don't know which one is yours, Nathan. Oh, I'm in the wrong thing. Silly me. Okay. There we go. 1, 2, 3. So is it this one? Yes. All right, Nathan. It's almost 2 o'clock. I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm going to do this image one more. Just wanted to mention again, once we only do 2 sales a year, our first sale of the year is ending tomorrow. We won't have another one for 6 months. So I just want to throw that out there. If you've been like on the fence, it doesn't make any sense to wait, because now is the beginning of your season. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, what you invest now will help you for the entire wedding season. So you're just going to be kicking yourself if you don't do it right now. But I don't know. I don't want to do a hard sell, but that's just the truth. Unless you're in the Southern Hemisphere, and then you're like, yay, Black Friday. It's like the beginning of my wedding and family season, and then you're set. So all the Aussies out there. Okay, so Fuji pushed, and you wanted to also see portrait pushed. So Fuji pushed. $400H. Let's do $400H push 2. We haven't done that one yet. So with 2, when you push Fuji 400H 2 stops, you start to get kind of a pink in the highlights, like a pink peachy color, which is really cool. There we go. So in this image, I just applied 400H, push 2 stops. It's a little bit on the cool side. I'm going to warm it up just a tiny bit. Yeah, to about there. She's standing on a green field with green trees in the middle of the day. So we've got a little bit of ground reflection causing green on her, or I thought it was, maybe a little bit under her chin. So I'm going to play with the tint slider and just try to dial in the skin tone like perfect. My advice with the tint slider is, instead of like sliding it with your mouse back and forth, just hover over it and then use the up and down keys on your keyboard just to do tiny adjustments. So I just went down 5 points of tint towards green. That's it. So this is before, and that's after. That's just like a couple clicks. Done. Looks really good. And then he also wanted to see portrait push. All right, so let's go to portrait push. Where is that one? Push Canon. What's gonna look really different? Let's do, portrait 160 plus 2. All right, holy green. Okay, so portrait 160, when you push it 2 stops, does have a lot of shift in the colors. We can counteract this a little bit with the tint slider. But it certainly does not work on this image. Whereas like Portrait 160 push 2 stops, if you were shooting like, I'll come back to this in a second. If you're shooting it like with, I'll show you what it looks good on. Come on, we gotta find some kind of dark and moody area. I'll come right back to that other photo in a second. And some random photo in the middle while Lightroom decides what's going on. Okay. So I'll show you Portrait 160 push 2 stops on an image like this. And I know that I'm using the Canon on the Nikon one. I totally shouldn't do that. So I just increase the exposure and the white balance just a little bit. This certainly needs transform here. Oh boy. And no, that's not cutting it right there. One of these will. Let's try auto. There we go. All right. It looks really cool on an image like this because you're starting to get the red shifts in the shadows, and it just looks, I don't know, more, I don't know, edgier, not light and airy, dark and moody. But we'll go back to that other image. It did not work on this other image because here's Portrait 160 plus 2. Because it doesn't really interact very well with the kind of green that she's on. So I prefer the Fuji look. Let's see how Portrait 400 push 2 stops will look on her. Yeah, it's just not, that pack is just not what I would use on her. This is kind of classic Fuji land, where you've got like the pretty white dress, the really nice, you know, clear skin, and the green field and backlit. So I hope that helps. Okay, one more. Oh, this is a cool one. We'll end it here. So Matthew Morgan asks, the difference between portrait and portrait pushed in the studio photo, the person in front of the blue backdrop. All right, so where are we? Portrait original. All right, so here's Portrait 400. Come on, boom. And we'll do cloudy white balance, and maybe just a tiny bit of magenta. That looks really cool. I think this image is awesome. So this is before, and that's after. We'll do it side by side so you can see. So that's just with Portrait 400, just from the original pack. And then you wanted to see Portrait pushed. Let's see, Portrait pushed. Here's Portrait 400 plus 2, push plus 2. You can see, whoa, got quite a bit more contrasty and a little bit more saturated. And that's what push film does. So I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit to compensate. And as you can see, you get a much like punchier image in general. Still looks really cool. It depends on what look you're going for. So I'll show you before and after. Regular Portrait 400. Portrait 400 push 2 stops. A little bit of a difference. I think the original Portrait is like a little more playful and fun, so I like that one. Looks really good. Really makes it pop out from the background. So, all right, Matthew, thank you so much. That concludes this hour of me just blabbing and editing. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be doing more of these live edits. We do them in our Mastin Labs community on Facebook, so you can just find us on Facebook. Just type in Mastin Labs community. As long as you're not an evil spammer, we will let you in. And you can not only see these live edits and add photos if you want to see how your photo will look, but you can also post one of your photos, a raw file, in the group and ask for someone in the community to edit it with whatever preset you want. And our community is amazing, and they'll do that most of the time. so you can kind of get a preview. It's also just a great place to learn and really nice people. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys online on Facebook. Thank you.